Hello, and welcome to Palindrome ASMR. Today I'm going to be reading from the Lassifia, which is a book I wrote, most specifically the sixth book that I wrote. And it is about a boy, a young man, who goes on a journey in a skyship and saves the world from demons and such. So the story so far is that Cell has boarded the Lassifia, and he has met his friends, or met an old friend named Reiko, who he used to protect as a child. And Reiko invited him to join the ship and the crew, and she introduced him to the crew, and he joined the ship, and they went on a mission to recover a sunken ship, basically. So the ship was sunken at the bottom of the forest. God, I'm not very good at doing this. You know, I am a much better author than I am a speaker when it comes to telling stories. Okay, so basically all you have to know is that Cell is on a ship. He released or saw the release of a demon lord who is going to take over the world unless they tell everyone and gather an army to fight it. And so he and the crew, who the captain is Toby Jess, an immortal 300-year-old immortal girl who is very powerful with magic, and Belize, a mafia hitman turned sailor, and Frisk, a sailor at the core who knows how to use a sword really well. And so they fought zombies together and robot pirates and demons, and now they are heading towards the city to warn them of the coming danger. So Cell recently just figured out that he was a technomage because Toby basically identified his magical skills. And so Cell is a technomage, and this passage next chapter will tell you exactly what that means. So that is all you need to know. Before I say one more thing, these videos don't do very well, but I do them because I like to do them, and because this is my book, and I like reading my book, the idea of putting my book onto a reading platform. And I apologize for the setup. I'm in a trailer. This is the only place that I can record properly. Preferably, I would be sitting at a fireplace with a chair and a nice padded chair, a fireplace, somewhere to put my feet up, and a glass of soda. I'm too young to drink wine. And so, here we go. The Lassifia, Chapter 4, Into the Coming Storm. What's a technomage? Cell asked. He sat in a chair in the captain's quarters across from Toby. Toby smiled big. This is your... She slapped her palm on the table. Amazing! Captain, what's a technomage? Toby grinned even bigger. Simply the best type of mage that exists. He leaned forwards. I have a question for you. Does the magical language evoke some sort of reaction in your mind? Color maybe? Feelings? Sound other than words? Cell nodded. Yeah, the magical language makes me see color, but I thought that was just normal. Toby pumped her fist in the air. It's true, it's totally true. Holy bejexible beetles. I've been waiting all my life to meet a real technomage, and I've finally done it. Ha! Ha! She slumped down in her chair, and then she sat up fast. I'll tell it to you straight. A technomage is someone that doesn't have to go through the magic language to perform magic. They can influence magic from their minds alone. Essentially, to them, magic is a topographical landscape, one that they can see and interact with. This is amazing. I don't think you understand the true scope of this. Isn't that kind of like synesthesia? Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. Magical synesthesia, the perfect pitch of the magical world, and you have it. Ah, this is amazing. The power, so much power. You can become one of the most powerful people in the world. Toby relaxed. If you work for it, of course. This still won't be an easy road. You'll still have to put in a lot of practice, but it will be radically different than what most people would go through. Toby put her finger up. Shush, let me think for a moment. What does this truly mean? You can see spells. You can construct them as if you were playing with a ball of clay, a kit of bricks and mortar. It means that you can construct clever spells, quick spells, cast magic without saying anything. Heck, you won't even have to learn the magical language. All you'd have to do is remember the shape of the word it makes in your head. I think I can do that, said Cell. I mean, I didn't notice it before, but when I think of it that way, I can He began to speak in the magical language, copying exactly what Toby had said when he had built the ship's ephemeral barriers before the conflict with the pirates. He even surprised himself. All he had to do was run through the impression that the language had left on his mind, and the words flowed out automatically. "Ah, stop," said Toby. Sel stopped. Toby let out a thick breath. "Magical words have power. Never use them lightly, and don't speak them unless you want them to do something for you." She spoke a sentence in the magical language. That spell dissipated most of the effects of the half-baked spell you just unleashed. "Be careful when you're dealing with these things. You heard the same lecture from Frisk, right? What I'm about to tell you isn't what I'm about to teach you how to use isn't a toy. It's a weapon. It can kill. It can alter things permanently. Frisk probably gave a better lecture than me, but I'll tell you the gist of mine is the same. Except this time, your potential uses are limitless. You just have to be careful when selecting them. Magic can do anything you want it to. I mean, I guess it's not just a weapon. Rather, it's a tool. Treat it as such." She sat back, then folded her hands. "How do I approach this?" She looked up at the ceiling. "Well, first off, I think I should give you as many magical spells as I can, since you can just remember them like that. I'll try to use a lot of different words. Won't they affect something? If I'm careful, they won't. If I lock my attention so that they don't really mean anything when I say the words, they won't go into effect. But what you just did was full power. You still have a lot to learn, everything in fact." She seemed to realize something. "Actually, before I give you a bunch of words to play with, I'll just tell you the 3 fundamental rules of magic." She lifted one finger. "Number 1, magical energy is confirmed, meaning that it has to come from somewhere." She lifted a second finger. "Number 2, unless it conflicts with rule number 1, magic obeys the wishes of the caster." She lifted up a third finger. "And number 3, if rule number 2 does not apply, magic does what it wants, within the bounds of rule number 1. She put her hand down. "Essentially, what these rules tell us is that magic is a powerful force, one with a will of its own, which can be bent by humans, but only to a certain extent. We must be careful when using it. We must be deliberate. When we use magic, we must always be aware of how much energy we are using and how much we have left." She turned up her palm. "The antimatter Magofficer works to our advantage by essentially invalidating rule number 1. Its supply of energy is basically limitless, though it is only accessible through magic and only available because of magic. Every ship nowadays has one, meaning that the quality of their caster has more meaning than the amount of energy they can draw on. But I don't think you're going to be doing any massive ship-to-ship magic. Your levels aren't high enough for that. Rather, I think your magic style will more suit a strategic battle, one where the kind of spell is more important than its power." She leaned back in her seat. "Got it? Got it? Good. Because I'm not repeating it." She took a deep breath. "Alright, now for the fun part. I get to teach you Ui, the language of magic, faster than anyone ever learned it before." Sel walked out of the captain's quarters, his head buzzing with colors and the words and their meanings and how to string them together into sentences which would do what he wanted them to. The veins in his head pulsed and he felt fried. He knew quite a bit of Ui now and was confident that he could use it. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. "You okay?" asked Reiko. She sat on her bunk with a book in her hands. "You fixed the Magofficer," said Sel. "As best I could," said Reiko, "though it isn't anywhere near perfect." Sel walked up beside Reiko and then motioned as if to sit down next to her. "Can I?" Reiko scooted over. "Sure, ain't nothing wrong with that." Sal sat down. "You don't sound too happy." Reiko sighed. "Yeah, and I'm a little cramped, but, well, you can say, you don't want me here." "It's not that," said Reiko. She rubbed at her eyes. "It's just that, do I look too much like Burns?" Reiko sucked in air through her teeth. "You know, I use that phrase too much, and I don't like it. I think what I'm going to do from here out is if I encounter a passage that I want to comment on, that I want to offer commentary on, I will comment on it, and basically you can get an idea into my mind about how this is going to go." Excuse me, I have to burp. There we go. Where was I? "Do I look too much like Burns?" Reiko sucked in air through her teeth. She said nothing. Sel turned his head aside. "You don't have to worry. I won't die like Burns did." "Why would I worry about you?" "That's harsh. I didn't mean it that way." "I know." Reiko bit her lip. "You want to know... You know how you always used to say, 'grow up' to me, when I would cry and stuff? I did used to do that, didn't I?" Sel chewed on his tongue. "I remember. Well, I think I'm all grown up now, only sometimes I wish I could cry. Then I wouldn't have to carry all this stuff with me. Am I being too personal? Am I saying too much?" Sal shook his head. "No, keep going. This is a breakthrough. She finally trusts me enough to say something. What do I do? That's a thought." So what do I do? That's a thought. It's in italics in the book, so you can tell it's a thought, but I'm just going to say that's a thought. Sal looked over at Reiko. "What do I do?" Reiko leaned back against the wall of the bunk. She turned her head aside. I think I loved Burns. She stayed silent for a moment. Cell said nothing. What? Said Reiko. You're not going to say anything? I thought you cared about my love life. Cell shook his head. No, I do. It's your love life. I thought I shouldn't barge in. Reiko scoffed. You've changed. For better or for worse? I won't say. Cell said nothing for a moment. Fine, go on. I love Burns, but I never got to tell him how I feel, because I'm just trash like that. I can't properly confess my feelings, you know? I know. I don't like the way you said that. Deal with it. Now that's the old you. Cell said nothing. Reiko just smiled a bit, sadly. And now that he's gone, I miss him a lot. A whole lot. And yes, you remind me of Burns, and you make me angry because of that, so I'm sorry if I'm standoffish. You were always standoffish, and yet you stayed with me anyways. Thank you. Ah, that feels nice. Not in prideful, stuck-up way. In a good way. That's a thought. Cell smiled. Reiko folded her arms behind her head. You know, it always gets me that it wasn't battle that killed Burns. I'd always expected him to go down fighting because he was never very good at it. How did he die? Reiko stayed silent for a long time. Cell was almost about to say something when she spoke. A storm. He was in the crow's nest, not properly tied down. The storm hit him too fast. Reiko paused, and then he was gone. Just like that, a blast of wind stole him away. His body's probably at the bottom of the sky floor now, rotted away, or, heaven forbid, walking around like a slavering lunatic because of some stupid Z-cloud. Now, the idea for Z-clouds came from a game called Dwarf Fortress, which is it's a really obscure but very influential game. It was actually one of the inspirations for Minecraft. Dwarf Fortress and Infinimer are the games that inspired Minecraft, according to Notch. And I've never played Infinimer, but I have spent countless hours building a fortress in Dwarf Fortress, and I can tell how it influenced Minecraft. So if you really want to find a really obtuse, really hard to learn, and totally in ASCII game, that's the ASCII, the what's it called? The standard that they use to represent, use hex. Anyways, ASCII is the computer standard that they use to represent characters on a screen. It's all in a C. It's all like letters. Monsters are letters. A goblin is the letter G. The dwarves are little happy faces, and different stones have like different letter symbols on them, like the pound sign, the dollar sign, the asterisk. It's a really fun game. It just takes a lot of dedication and intelligence, frankly, to learn. So if you think you're smart, try Dwarf Fortress. And Z clouds are like if you start in a evil area, in a high difficulty area, these Z clouds float through, and if a dwarf steps into those clouds, they turn into a zombie. So that's where I got the idea for Z clouds. God, that hurts to think about. That's Reiko. She laid down on the bed between the bedpost and Cell. I miss him. She curled up into a ball. Don't judge me. Cell shook his head. I'm not. Reiko gave a painful laugh. I'll take that. I'll believe you. You're a lot kinder than you used to be. I guess I am. I still have my faults, though. You admit it? Yeah. Reiko stayed silent for a while. Sorry for talking about you so much to the rest of the crew. That's okay, said Cell. In fact, it might have been a good thing. Without it, Frisk might not have recognized me, or I might not have been hired. It's thanks to you that I'm here. There was a long silence. Eventually, Cell lay down beside Reiko on the cramped bed, and stared at the ceiling for a little while, before falling asleep. He was awoken by a screeching sound, a sound like the whole of hell had come out and was coming down upon him in the distance, getting closer. The Lassifia shook. Reiko was nowhere to be seen. Cell got up out of bed and walked towards the ladder in the center of the hold, the ship's violent motion throwing him against the wall, and then against the captain's door, and then against the ladder itself. He grabbed the ladder and climbed up. Outside, rain poured down and a ferocious gale whipped across the deck. Reiko stood just outside the hatch. Grab a security line, she called out to him. Her voice sounded strange. Cell took one of the ropes attached to the deck like ribbons, whose purpose he had always wondered about, but which he now saw the reason for. They had sprung up from the deck on supports and were now at waist level. Cell pulled himself across the churning ship to where Reiko stood. Frisk rushed past. Ease the sails, batten down the hatches. The wind drowned out most of his voice. Reiko did nothing. She stared out at the horizon, where massive storm clouds brewed, high, gigantic temples of gray and black, thunderous and lightning. Cell pulled himself out beside her. Reiko, he called over the wind. Reiko, help with the sails. Reiko said nothing, only looked out over the edge of the ship with an unreadable expression on her face. She whispered something. What? Asked Cell. Say that again? The wind howled at his ears. It's back, said Reiko, barely audible. It's come to get me this time. Cell snapped his fingers in front of Reiko's face. Snap out of it. You aren't going to be taken away. You've weathered plenty of storms before, haven't you? Reiko gripped the railing. She turned to Cell. Tears streamed down her cheeks amid the raindrops. Cell couldn't tell which was which. Reiko looked at him in the eye and held his gaze. Cell couldn't turn away. He couldn't. Reiko! A massive gust of wind tossed the Lassifia like a leaf. Cell's hands jerked against the safety rope. He struggled to stay attached. Reiko seemed to realize something. She took a clip off the side of the ship, the same kind used on the zip line, and handed it to Cell. Here, she said. Cell snapped himself into the line, one end of the clip attached to his belt, the other to the rope. Reiko pushed her way past him. Cell looked over his shoulder at her. Reiko, where are you going? Where are you going? Reiko unhooked herself from the line and began to climb the rigging. Frisk hurried past with the rope in his hands, uninterested in Cell or Reiko. The rain sliced through the air and hammered on the deck. Reiko continued to climb. The ship tilted at a sharp angle. Cell staggered, holding on as best he could, barely managing to stay upright. He needed to get Reiko. Reiko made it to the crow's nest and climbed up. She put one foot up on the edge, unhooked, and raised her arms. Come and get me, she screamed. Cell fought his way towards the mainmast. Frisk's arm landed on his shoulder. Leave her. Us men have work to do. He motioned with his neck. Cell watched Reiko for a few moments more, and then turned aside. Frisk pointed him to the mizzenmast. Ease those sails! Cell pulled himself up to the mizzenmast and began to loosen the ropes binding the sail to its spar. Up in the crow's nest, Reiko continued to scream. Come at me! See what you can do! I dare you! I dare you! Come at me and see what you can do! She pounded at her chest. Come! Her voice broke. She continued to scream. Come here and take me down! Take me with you! I dare you! A stray rope whipped backwards in a gust of wind and snapped across Cell's face, sending him flying until the safety line caught him. He staggered, and the breath knocked out of him. On the other side of the deck, Toby and Frisk worked with the starboard Esben mast. The port Esben mast vibrated against its holdings. Cell turned away and continued to ease the sails on the mizzenmast. They snapped and crackled and fought against their spars. A sound like the rolling thunder approached him from the distance, like 1,000 horses. Both Frisk and Toby dove down to the deck at the same instant. Cell looked around in confusion. Reiko continued to scream profanities at the storm. The sound grew closer. Every last bit of air suctioned off to a point at the port side of the bow. Cell gasped. The air came smashing back into Lassifia, a solid wall, with enough force to bowl Cell over and tangle him in the safety line. The wind sucked backwards. Cell jerked against the line, his body a rag doll. Then it hit again. Cell's shoulder slammed against the dock. Every last bit of breath left him. He coughed twice, before the air suctioned away again. He crawled up the deck for 2 seconds before it hit once more. He crashed against the Esben mast. The mizzenmast. One of his ribs cracked. He slumped to the ground. There's no way Reiko survived this. He coughed up blood. Right, I can use magic now. He spoke a few words in Ui, and the pulse of energy left his body, only to return in the form of healing. He coughed, then crawled to his feet. He wiped his mouth. Then he looked up at the crow's nest. There was no one there. Reiko? He said. The wind of the storm seemed tame in comparison to what had just happened. He could not feel the rain anymore. Reiko? He said. He pulled himself up to the rigging beside the mainmast, unlatched himself, and began to climb while the ship rocked at vicious angles beneath him. Once he almost lost his footing. Adrenaline shot through his body. He held tight to the rigging and didn't move. When the swell passed, he kept climbing. His entire body protested. He made it over the top of the crow's nest and climbed onto it, and there was Reiko laying in the bottom of the nest, her eyes closed, a peaceful expression on her face. Cell squeezed himself into the nest. He leaned up close to Reiko. Are you okay, Reiko? Reiko smiled. I'm fine, she said, her voice hoarse. I'm just fine. She opened her eyes, then met Cell's gaze. She showed her teeth. I've been through worse. Cell laughed, more out of relief than anything else. Yeah. He pushed Reiko aside to make room for himself on the floor of the crow's nest. He could feel the workings of magic around him. Had the captain, he smiled. Knowingly. She had. A spell of protection. Placed around the bird's nest, drawing from the mage officer. It glowed a nice, soft orange in Cell's mind. He laughed out loud. What? Said Reiko. Nothing, said Cell. Just nothing. I was worrying for nothing. What do you mean? Cell stayed silent. He closed his eyes and felt the Lassifia's extreme rocking back and forth, magnified by the height of a bird's nest. The captain and the rest of the crew cared too. I know, said Reiko. Cell waited for a moment. I care. I know, said Reiko. There was a long silence. This is nice, said Cell. Reiko laughed. If you think this is nice, I was joking, said Cell. Reiko huffed. The sound of the wind wasn't so much behind the low wall of the bird's nest. Though the rain still beat down hard, little holes at the bottom of the nest drained the water out. Cell pushed at Reiko's leg. Move over. I'm cramped. Reiko didn't move. Deal with it, or get out. Cell half smiled and tried to situate himself better. Reiko smells good, even through the rain. Cell caught himself. Did I just think that, Reiko? That, Reiko? I mean... He looked at Reiko, who lay beside him in the cramped confines of the bird nest. She was close. Very close. The storm roared around them. But in that moment, Cell felt a sense of peace, of calm. He didn't know what to think. He turned away from her. Cell, said Reiko. What, said Cell. Don't go. Cell's heart skipped. Okay, I won't. Now's your chance. This is it. Do it. You're a man. But she just suffered a loss. Isn't this too close? No. Yes. No. Yes. Cell took a deep breath. Reiko. Yes, said Reiko. Reiko, what do you think of me? Reiko said nothing for a moment. You're my big brother, aren't you? Cell bit his lip. Big brother? What does that mean? No, I want to know, Reiko, Cell said. I think... The air suctioned away, leaving Cell's gasping for breath. Then it hit all at once, rocking the ship, jamming Cell against the side of the bird's nest. Though his tight fit with Reiko kept them from falling out. His skin pressed against hers, wet, the clothing soaking through. He closed his eyes. He opened them. Maybe I should reconsider. Another blast sent the crow's nest swinging. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. This may not be what I want, he sighed. That's it. I'll keep it to myself. He looked over at Reiko. I think you'd appreciate that. He smiled to himself and then closed his eyes and prepared to ride out the storm. That is the end of chapter 4. So, I hope you enjoyed this chapter 4 of the Lassifia. I just had to itch my nose. This is uncut and unedited because my editing software is Windows Movie Maker, and I am very bad at editing. So, I hope you enjoyed this. If you want me to read more of my book on a more frequent basis, just ask and I will. That's it, and I'll see you on the other side.